don't scare me! Work on it!
Hello again. Yeah, this is a quick turnaround time for another video on this channel, which is pretty rare, I know. Once again, I find myself in this decompression phase after uploading a major video, where I don't feel like editing a movie, but I still have topics I want to talk about. So, there's nothing better than the good old-fashioned, minimally edited commentary to deliver my raw, unfiltered thoughts to your ears. Don't worry, the third and final part to my casual mode versus quick play series will come next. Unless something insane happens for TF2, but I'm not holding my breath on that. I normally put commentaries like this on my second channel these days, but I'm uploading this one here because I'd like to talk about something that I think every TF2 player needs to hear. It's an offshoot of the much larger, but now mostly dormant discourse that many people had against Team Fortress 2. It's this idea that TF2 players are somehow entitled for holding Valve, a multi-billion-dollar company, responsible for the functionality of one of their products. This discourse was extremely prevalent during the Fix TF2 movement, where players banded together and demanded for Valve to do something about the cheating bots that were rendering the game unplayable. Emplemon made a very good commentary shutting this down, and I highly recommend you go watch that one. But there's one particular aspect of this discourse that still persists. For some reason. It's this unfounded fear that if TF2 players complain too much, or somehow ask too much of Valve, they'll just shut down Team Fortress 2. At face value, this sounds insane, but within the TF2 sphere, it's one of the last bad faith arguments made in defense of giant gaming companies like Valve that we still haven't quite shaken off. I will say, this unfounded fear isn't nearly as amplified as it once was. I don't see it that often anymore, but considering the damage it's done, and I think is still doing, it's worth addressing. First of all, it's no secret that TF2 isn't in a very good state. If you're completely unaware of what's happening in Team Fortress 2, here's a brief summary. As someone who's been very vocal of TF2's neglect for years now, I've been making a lot of videos critical of Valve, critical of the state of the game, poor content quality, so on and so forth. The more of these videos I make, the more I'm subjected to the same nauseating exhaustion that is toxic positivity. Yeah, I know, eyes rolling, groans moaning, but it's a real problem that many online gaming spheres deal with. Over the years, TF2 has suffered from a particularly nasty case of toxic positivity. For the longest time, it has been extremely taboo to speak ill of anything Valve does, or doesn't do, especially in regards to Team Fortress 2, without getting accosted by Valve's most stalwart bootlickers. Thankfully, in recent years, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. A combination of increased player complaints and increasingly poor support has significantly diluted that toxic positivity, because, frankly, TF2's current treatment and functionality is simply indefensible. You can't just hand-wave this away without looking like the most cucked Valve slave imaginable. Regardless, toxic positivity is a problem, because it tends to shut down meaningful, constructive discourse. Especially because in recent years, many true, genuine fans of many franchises have fallen into the trap of letting that toxic positivity influence their behavior within their hobbies, because they get attacked, shamed, guilt-tripped, or even scared into doing so. This has all become extremely annoying, because for whatever reason, far too much power is given to tourists, which ultimately hampers or outright mutes meaningful discourse for that hobby, especially a hobby going down an unfavorable path. And part of that power comes from merely entertaining the insane notion that if players complain too much about Team Fortress 2, or boycott the game, or ask for too much, Valve will they'll shut the game down. Just be grateful for what we have. Stop being entitled. I think a lot of these people view TF2 as some kind of charity case, Valve maintaining the game out of the kindness of their hearts, or as an obligation to the fans. And if we make too much noise, Valve's gonna get pissed and just shut the game down. How dare you be so ungrateful? This is a textbook example of emotional blackmail. In this case, it's emotional manipulation that passes the responsibility from Valve onto the player, guilt-tripping, shaming, and even scaring players into thinking that their complaints endanger the game they love. This notion of Valve shutting the game down, just be grateful for what we have, as I've seen it, has not only had the most staying power, but the largest muting effect on constructive discourse surrounding the state of the game. In fact, quite a few people still recall this argument from the past, or still see it to this day. Even Reddit, which is pretty surprising. Valve shutting the game down has been said so often that there is now a significant number of real TF2 players, not tourists, but actual players, that have been convinced that this is a real possibility, that they should feel guilty for asking Valve to work on TF2. As a result, the voices that matter, the players, withhold themselves from the constructive conversations that really need to take place. So, I'm gonna pick this bullshit apart. Not to refute the people saying this in the first place, because that's a waste of time, they're not acting in good faith, but hopefully to remind the people that believe this is true, or that they're in the wrong for criticizing Valve, that this is an unfounded fear with absolutely zero basis in reality. But before that, I know people hate it when the YouTuber tries to sell them something. It's why ad block and sponsor block exist. So today's sponsor is just me. If you like what I do, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff helps out more than you think. And if you want to go the extra mile, I have a Patreon. Patrons get exclusive access to my Discord where I show works in progress and full pre-screenings of all of my videos. And I have something extra special for you today. So, Valve shutting the game down is the most easily debunked by simply pointing out that Valve has already had every opportunity to shut down Team Fortress 2 over the past decade in response to player complaints, and they still haven't. Even after the tidal waves of complaints from the Save TF2 and Fix TF2 protests, about as loud as a player base could complain, they still did not throw the kill switch. Throughout all of that time, throughout the entire bot crisis, Valve showed interest in one thing and one thing only, and that's keeping Team Fortress 2 alive. Not alive in a meaningful way, but primarily for its benefits. The first of which being the profits. Do note that the bulk of the work that Valve performs on Team Fortress 2 boils down to keeping the gravy train going. They toss in 3 to 4 loot boxes each year, alongside some new maps to drive engagement, because you gotta give people a reason to open the game and get exposed to the microtransactions other than the microtransactions themselves, though it seems like a few new hats are good enough for most players these days, but that's pretty much it. Any notable work outside of this over the last decade has primarily been done for maintenance, longevity. The 64-bit update, the bot fix, and the SDK, which were all performed by one guy, a contractor, not even a Valve employee, but a contractor.
The 64-bit update, how did that come about?
That was Joshy, right?
Yeah, I think that's already in the lore. Yeah, Joshy, who's a contractor, works on various things for us. Source 1 updates and maintenance for compatibility and various things. Hooked up the 64-bit build of Team Fortress 2. They were eager to do that work, so we were like, yeah, sure.
I've already established that TF2 generates about $20 to $40 million a year, and that's on the conservative side. Valve earns this money by doing almost nothing other than hosting the servers and, of course, copying and pasting content into the game that they do not make. The players do. And, if we're lucky, they'll plug in some bug fixes from the public GitHub that the players also made. This maybe amounts to a couple of weeks worth of work each year from, 2, 3 people? Valve has Team Fortress 2 exactly where any other developer would want their live service title, printing tens of millions with almost zero work needed. The work-to-profit ratio is practically infinite. Why on earth would any company shut that down in response to player complaints? Especially when those same players keep dumping money into their pockets. Now then, I'm sure I'm gonna hear the usual argument that, well, TF2 doesn't earn as much money as Counter-Strike, ergo, TF2's profits are pointless pennies that aren't worth considering. If Valve shuts the game down, they won't even notice the loss. Green light, throw the kill switch, kill the game, it's over. This was the favorite argument against boycotting Team Fortress 2 during the Fix TF2 movement, and probably the most idiotic. Yes, Team Fortress 2 earns way less money than Counter-Strike, and way less money than Steam as a whole. In the grand scheme, the money that TF2 generates in a year is what Valve makes in about 20 to 40 hours. But what logical sense does it make to cut off a stream of tens of millions for no discernible financial reason? Remember, Valve is the most profitable game company in history. You don't reach that position by pissing away a few million here or 40 million there. Every nickel is accounted for, and a sudden deficit of tens of millions isn't exactly small. No company focused on turning the highest profits possible would squander that money away just because some players complained. This makes zero economic sense, and anyone who thinks that any game company would close this freely flowing tap just because people complain about the taste of the water is an idiot. But if that's still not good enough, why else do you think Valve hasn't shut down Team Fortress 2? Well, it's because it's a major cog in their multi-billion-dollar microeconomy machine. A very integral part of the Counter-Strike economy, and Valve's microeconomy ecosystem as a whole, is TF2 items. Ever since Valve made Counter-Strike keys untradeable, liquid TF2 items like keys and golden pans became a much bigger facet in the Counter-Strike economy. If Valve suddenly decides to shut down TF2, wiping all of those items from existence, how do you think the market would react? Pretty poorly. Moreover, the bigger risk here is that nuking TF2 items from existence by shutting the game down would send this massive, loud message to Counter-Strike players: uh-oh, I don't actually own anything in this game. Valve can just turn this off whenever they want, and my money is gonna vaporize. Talk about a quick way to crash your own multi-billion-dollar money printer overnight. And it is billions, by the way. Valve earned over $1 billion just from Counter-Strike key sales last year. Just the keys, not everything else. I made a second channel video about that too. It is an insane amount of money, and the last thing Valve wants to do is figure out how that market would become destabilized by shutting down the microeconomy that fathered all microeconomies. Yeah. And if you need any more reason why Valve isn't shutting down TF2 if players complain or ask for too much, just think about the optics of that. Imagine if one of the biggest names in gaming, a household name, Valve, the Valve, in response to waves of outcries from dissatisfied players, just shuts down one of the most beloved games of all time. Imagine how awful that would make them look. Talk about absolutely annihilating your reputation. Make no mistake, Valve is incredibly concerned with their optics, as is every other game company. In a very interesting thread of tweets from a now former Valve employee, highly recommend you guys go read these, it goes over how game companies, including Valve, perform various acts to steer public perception of the company in a favorable direction. Remember that Valve company handbook that leaked a few years ago?
This is Valve's official employee handbook, first leaked in 2012 and then officially published for anybody to read. It is, at least partially, meant as a recruitment tool.
Yeah, that was fake. Ever wonder why we see so little bad press about Valve in general, despite their many fuck-ups with their games? Well, it's common practice to wine and dine journalists so they turn a blind eye to their antics. Remember, Valve isn't that much better than any other game company. They do quite a few reprehensible things and have their fair share of fuck-ups. They're just way better at controlling their public image. And as a part of that, the last thing they would do is obliterate that image by shutting down Team Fortress 2 in response to player protests. Again, imagine how bad that would make them look. So take comfort in the fact that if Valve does decide to shut down Team Fortress 2, it won't be because players complain. It'll be because Counter-Strike is on its way out. Yes, I am repeating myself. I've said many of these points across several videos over the years, but I wanted to condense all of those points into one place. Again, for everyone watching, please remember, you are not being entitled by holding a multi-billion-dollar company responsible for one of their products, to fix its problems, to improve the state of things, to meet consumer demands, especially for a product they still offer as playable, monetized, and one that rakes in as much money as a brand new smash hit game each year. You are doing nothing wrong by complaining about the state of Team Fortress 2. If anyone calls you entitled for wanting Valve to work on Team Fortress 2, just tell them to fuck off. Notice how all of these arguments are rarely used for any other video game? It's just so fucking stupid. I know many of my videos are negative these days. They're critical of Valve, critical of the state of Team Fortress 2. I know that too much negativity annoys people, but what the fuck else am I supposed to do? I don't enjoy sitting idly by pretending that nothing is wrong with my favorite game, as it slowly rots in Valve's back pocket. The back pocket of a company that has limitless resources and manpower that could perform just a little bit more work for massive improvements and ultimately more profit, so it's in their best interest. Players these days aren't even asking for that much. We're not trying to bring TF2 back to its glory days, to the updates of old. No one is really asking for this. What most players can agree with, and what we want, is that if Valve is going to keep TF2 on indefinite life support, they could, at the very least, leave the game in a state that's more enjoyable to play, by addressing casual mode's dysfunctionality and improving the quality of content selections. Whether or not it's okay to complain about the state of Team Fortress 2 shouldn't even be a debate. This shouldn't even be a contentious topic in the TF2 sphere. And yes, my criticisms towards Valve aren't exactly revolutionary. Valve's neglect, TF2's problems, it's nothing new. My very vocal critics often bitch and moan about this. But when I say that TF2 should be treated better, or that the gameplay could use some serious attention, people latch onto that. Because no other larger figures say what I say, let alone do the work to show just how bad these problems really are. So don't be surprised when people listen, agree with me, and then repeat what I say. I complain as much as I do because if there's even the slightest chance I can encourage players to speak out and push Valve to do something, I'm gonna do it. Problems will never be addressed unless we speak about them. Sitting around and doing nothing is a surefire way of guaranteeing that nothing changes. So, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing here. If you don't like it, well, don't know what to tell you.
Colossal, large, big as it gets, massive. I'd kill you all if I wasn't so passive. Instead, I creep off to a booth and hold it solo to study these people. You fucking filth, working on my fifth or maybe my sixth, where every woman represents the meaning of existence. I've no choice but to notice the one that consistently keeps me enlisted, keeps me aware. She has no idea where my head sits, and if she did, how do you think she'd react?